Yeah, so this is one that's gonna pain me to
Come
say,
on.
but I think
Are you
it's
ready?
finally
This
time.
this could be hot take point made now, Maui. Get ready
Yeah,
for this take. Bad point,
I
go for it.
I think it's time for Karrigan to retire.
Retire, by the way. Not leave FaZe
Oh,
Clan. He has to leave the game itself. Okay, hit me with the reasons. I'm ready. I'm ready, mate.
I guess like the problem is like at what point do the benefits stop outweighing the downsides?
Okay.
I mean, clearly Karrigan has had in the last 3 months have been like the worst performance from him I've ever seen. And you would think that that's not like that bad, except it kind of is, because one of the things that they like to do on their T side is, oh, we're going to send Karrigan in. He's going to
Yes.
go look and get the information. He might die. If he gets a kill, then that's just a bonus. But then my star players are going to bail us out in the 4v5.
Sure.
Except the problem is that, I mean, I'm not really big on statistics, but the statistics kind of speak for themselves. Karrigan goes for entries 30% of the time, and he only has a 30% success rate.
That is insanely bad.
That's
yes.
really
Amazing.
bad. And then on top of that, FaZe's 4v5 conversion rate is like 21%. So they're winning like none of these
Right.
4v5s that they're forced into by
yeah.
Karrigan. And it's like is it really worth it anymore to have Karrigan play this role? I mean, from my memory, I can only think of like one or two maps like that I can think of Karrigan even having a good series, and it's still just a map. He still has the entire best of 3 to play. Like it's recently they just they lost to G2 like the other day, and he had a good first map, and then they just get banged out in the next two. It's like, okay, cool. So we had one good map from Karrigan, and then things just kind of, yeah. And also, the individuals surrounding Karrigan are also not at peak form right now. I mean, Robs has also fallen off a cliff. I mean,
Sure.
when CS2 first came out, they were making all the finals, making all those deep runs, and why was that? I mean, Robs was one of probably the best player in the world at the time for CS2, and now I don't even know what he's doing. And the rest of the supporting crew, I mean, we got rid of Twist, picked up Frozen, which Frozen's been way better than I thought he would be, but he's like he's like the silver lining of FaZe right now. So I think it's time.
No, it's a stronger
for
argument than I
Karrigan.
thought. Fair play. Thoughts,
Wow.
Maui?
Many thoughts. It feels that's a wild take to come onto the show with. First of all, I feel like you're definitely gonna draw some ire from the
At
community.
least he's swinging
but-
for the fences, to be fair. He's obviously going for it, I know. Like,
Yeah, it's but I respect it. I respect it because I respect it not because I necessarily agree with it, because the thing is that for me the rope is so long for Karrigan. Like I
Sure.
give him so much of a pass because of everything that he's accomplished before. But no, the way that he's individually playing right now is abysmal. Like it's so bad. It's so detrimental to the team at this point that it has gotten to the point of inexcusable. Like you cannot be an individual player that is this poorly performing when there's other IGLs out there that are not really, they're not taking the scene by storm with their own mechanics or anything like that. But Chopper contributes. Okay, Chopper is a contributing player. Apex contributes. They find ways to be effective, and even by the end of it, like the numbers that Karrigan's been putting up lately are flat out Hooksy levels of bad. And I feel like there's been a bit of a discourse between why is it that we're giving Karrigan a pass when we didn't give Hooksy. Well, the thing is that everybody raves about Karrigan in so many different ways, in so many different interviews, and so the praise of his teammates has gone a very long way in carrying him. But retire is so strong because it's been a short term of them not winning, and they did win a tournament this year in Chengdu. It was with some good performances from people like Brokey, obviously, but at the same time, Apex, despite arguably having a stronger roster right now, isn't winning. And so that's where the defense of Karrigan for me really lies, that he can still be quite a horrible player individually, but can still actually manage a trophy with pieces that are arguably worse than what Vitality and Apex has. So he's doing something right, and maybe it's not the most consistent style. I don't think anybody has ever tried to make the argument that the way that Karrigan calls FaZe is like Prime Astralis in terms of consistency, in terms of perfect teamwork. Like FaZe has always been a little bit of a messy team, and that's what always has made them so exciting, because they let games slip, they come back into a lot of games. And I think the term that describes Karrigan the best right now for me is that of all of the in-game leaders right now in Tier 1 Counter-Strike, I have heard the most testimony from former teammates that Karrigan is the best overall captain. And even when I was actually having in the post game or the post tournament, like the after party of the Blast World Finals, I talked to Frozen individually about what is it about Shuhei versus Karrigan, and he couldn't actually really put it into words into what it is in the game. But he said something about just like when it's Karrigan backing you up, when he's telling you about a play, it's like you know Finn's got it. You know Finn's got it. It's like instills him in a different type of trust that somehow seems to still have like all of his teammates are always going to have his back no matter what, because they know that he can carry them to the promised land because of whatever call that he's done in the past. And the results don't speak for that right now, especially in recent few months. But in terms of the longevity of what he's done and in terms of all of the crazy amounts of trophies he's lifted, people still have his back, and I'm not calling for his head just yet. I would say let's see how this season plays out. If they win nothing at all, if they stop making grand finals, I'd be concerned.
I mean, I still think that he's got plenty of time, but he's trending downwards very quickly. Like very quickly. And by the way, this is coming from probably the biggest FaZe fan in the world.
Fair
like
enough.
I've watched every FaZe game since like 2017 and whenever they got their roster.
Yeah.
Like I love FaZe and I love karrigan. I think he's one of the best IGLs ever. I mean, I think that, like you said, all of his teammates would say as much. But again, I say, at what point do the benefits stop outweighing the downsides?
Sure.
I mean, like you either die a legend, like one of the best of all time, or you live long enough to become Oxy. That's all there is to say.
That's a good line.
I will say, I mean, just get Scrawny to fucking voice it, put it on a fucking trailer, problem solved. There's your next like ESL event. Right, there's the funny thing. I actually thought when I saw him send me this point, there's no fucking way he's going to have a point on this. But I actually realised it's not even a badly argued point, because I sort of agree, but I can flip it. Like I've thought a defence, but the defence is going to be you have to change the structure of FaZe. I mean, you've sort of implied it there. So first of all, I will say, like the reason on its surface immediately your brain rejects it is, it was only about like 4 months ago. He was in every single final in a row, and he even won some of the events at the beginning. So, like, if you can make the final with your team, like, you almost by definition are fine playing Pro CS still, because if you think about it, like, you're not playing the same port every final. You beat all those other teams. You beat them in the semis or the quarters or whatever. So, that karrigan in theory was fine. But to be fair, that was also when some of the stars hadn't dropped off. So, since the stars have dropped off, like, now it just isn't good enough. So, I'm sort of with you. I have to say, because essentially every single map I've ever seen karrigan bottom frag since about 2018, the HLTV thread has been like, karrigan fans come here, he must be kicked, he is trash, cannot do anything. It means at this point we've all just learned to like tune that signal noise out. And I actually haven't checked his individual fragging stats for quite a while, I have to say, Austin. So I assumed it was going to be the usual sky is falling, but I'd look and it was like, bro, he's got like a 0.9 rating. Like, that's actually totally fine. If you look at as you say, it's not like he's in positions to frag. He's in, by definition, the word. He's essentially the bait. Like, he's literally what they call the meat in French CS, where you put the meat on the end of a stick and put it out, and then when the bear attacks it, you just bring in all your attack dogs and your gun and you shoot the bear, right? So in that scenario, as you say, his job was, and he was smart enough, I think, to actually take what already people like MSL and Glaive did before, but just do an even better version of it, because since he's so good on the fly at reading the game, it was actually mad OP to have the first person in, die or kill, be the one who then come to everyone else what to do and what the mid-round was. That actually was a fucking straight fire approach to CS. And obviously, if he could kill, it would still work to this day. But I'm with you, when you combine those two stats, like how insanely bad his opening kill percentage is, and then the fact that his team's shit at 4v5s, like, look, I don't believe stats tell you everything, but you'd have a hard time arguing against that being something that will kill you dead. I mean, essentially the maths tell you just don't win T rounds because of him. He's like the first reason you'd even have to bring up before anyone brings up Robs, blah, blah, blah. No, you have to bring up this guy first. So I'm with you on that one. But that then does infer, you suggested it yourself, the obvious fix there is, he probably just needs to play with the superstar. You know what I mean? Like, essentially, if we could take one player and we could turn that, like, if we took Brokey and we turned him into Ziwu, suddenly we might be cooking with gas again. We could probably still win a tournament again. Which, to be fair, karrigan might be the only great IGL left that could actually get a move like that done. Because as Maui pointed out, I think actually the modern crop of players have a very different perspective on karrigan than the earlier pros did. Because think about his first two big teams. In TSM, they were all the best players in Denmark, if you don't know. They were really fucking insanely good players. And so, since they hadn't won anything yet, they had no extra reason to stick with him. Since they never won, they did the daps to Stanislaw move of like, let's just kick this guy and get someone who might be able to take us over the top. Then when he was in FaZe, what people forget is everyone in that team had won tournaments, like 250k tournaments before. In fact, most of them had been in the best team in the world or the second best team in the world. So again, their whole thing was, you're basically just here to win us the major, bro. And since he didn't do that, it's why people remember, if they watch my content, I was actually very fair back in the day. And that year I even said, look, I might not agree with Nico, think he's overrated, but if you want to kick him, yeah, he did sort of blow a bunch of tournaments. He had a bunch of times he didn't make the hero call, which obviously now he's iconic for. But if you look in the modern day from Mouse onwards, bro, this guy has actually gotten the craziest rep of any IGL I think I've ever heard of, bro. Because normally when people get raved about, it's when they were in one team forever and they won everything with those teammates and they all came up. This guy gets people, and the perception of pros is, I mean, just look at Frozen, right? He didn't go to FaZe because he's going to get way more money. He went to FaZe to complete his fucking Jedi training, as it were, and become like a master and win the major, etc. So karrigan has that appeal where he can bring you in no matter what he's doing, because like Maui said, the perception is he can get you to the promised land. If you're good enough, he's almost good enough that it'll work. Basically, that's the premise. So I think the main problem is maybe the era when he could just do it with the sort of like 3/4 stars, which has been his like rotation for the last year. Maybe that's over. Maybe that's the case. I'm with you on that one. I would still say you maybe roll the dice and you try. Maybe this is where you do get a simple or something ridiculous like that, or you do try to break the bank and get some mega player that if they're really trying to move him in, there's always rumours of what I want to see. Go and offer him something to bring him in. So I think there's that angle. I'm actually with you. If you look at the current lineup, that would be one of the problems I think you'd have to mention. And then the other reason why I think your initial point seemed mental is because you said that he had to retire. Like, the retire part is obviously absurd because, like, look, again, not only can he bring people to his team, he could go to, like, basically everyone except about 4 teams and they'd all go, yes, welcome karrigan, welcome to the karrigan era, and they'd all love to have him. And obviously, by the way, on some of the teams that are, like, lower anyway, he'd actually just be way better. I mean, he wouldn't play the same competition all the time and he'd be up-and-coming players. But I sort of know what you mean in this sense. If I shade in what he implies he wants, then it probably is, because it's implied if you read all the interviews with karrigan the last few years, like how many ways does he have to say it, guys? He's basically done the sort of like, I hope FaZe is my last team, maybe I'll become a coach one day, I wonder if Twist could be like, how many fucking ways does he have to say it? Essentially, he knows this is his last dance, as it were. He's trying to get all the majors and the prestige tournaments on the way out. That's why, as I told you, he doesn't give a fuck about winning IM Chengdu. He wants to win the major and kind of eats, etc. He's trying to win them all. So I think even he's sort of aware of that, Austin. Like, he's waiting for the moment when it's right to step away. And actually, he's not the guy, I'm telling you right now, who'll play to the bitter end. He's not going to do what MSL did and be doing some online qualifier, trying to get into one last LAN and prove he will just walk away, probably near the top like this, not too distant from when he was in big tournaments. He might even do that thing, by the way, where if you really did, like, as a dark horse, win this last major, you might just retire after that. That might even be a move. Because it's also implied, if you look at it, that, like, the fact that he's like got a wife now and a family, he's one of those people who just looks like he's decided. He's already seeing in the rearview mirror the next chapter, like his old CS career, and he's looking out at the next chapter, which is obviously not going to be being a CS player anymore. Which might mean, by the way, so the obvious transition, he might even just becomes the coach. I mean, again, if there's anyone you'd take, I'll even throw this in there. If you're a FaZe fan, you'll have seen this too. If you ever watch the behind-the-scenes content of FaZe, it gives away so much about the relationships. You can tell fans, I think it's just because it's time-consuming. They just want to read a headline. They don't want to actually sit and watch a video. If you watch those videos, his relationship with Neo is really weird, guys. Because one, he came from 1.6, and Neo is a god in 1.6, by the way. Like, that's like Roger Federer or fucking Michael Jordan. Like, everyone who played 1.6 reveres Neo. And then secondly, Neo's older than karrigan. I don't know if people know that. He's like 2 or 3 years older. So you would think in this team, when Neo walks in, it should be the only person who sort of mogs karrigan. No, bro. karrigan treats Neo like he's his little brother. For real. And by the way, Neo buys into it. I'm telling you, if you ever watch these vlogs, they don't seem like that's his boss or his coach, by the way. That seems like grab a couple of coffees and bring in the play. But there's almost that vibe still, even though I do get that he gives him room to do the tactic. So I actually think, to me, it's obvious that he can just be a coach anytime, probably in FaZe Clan. They'll probably just make a coaching staff and he'll do one thing and he'll do another thing. And by the way, the reason why that would be genius if you're FaZe, and why you actually should listen to Austin and tell him, you can either stay and tell us if we have to spend all the money to get simple, or if you're going to retire, please don't go elsewhere, become our coach. Because, bro, the coaching angle would actually still apply, I think, to the thing of getting stars to come. They would still want to come and go, I want to be working with karrigan, I'm going to win them. I think that would still, most of it would hold. Obviously, look, he would lose all the in-game mid-rounds. But then again, if we've all been watching Pro CS, bros, the guys are out there. If Twist ever makes it, you either get him because you know him already, or you just get like someone like Shu here who seems to have similar characteristics, don't you? Like, I feel like this could even work out as a happy ending. So even though it sounded like he was coming at the king, trying to fucking throw some tomatoes in his face just because he's having a bad 2.5 months or whatever it is. But It was actually a reasonable point. Fair play. It was reasonable, Austin.
Yeah, I'd love to see him coach FaZe. I think that would make a lot of sense.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.